I asked for directions. And this guy gave me directions. And I noticed in his hand he had a knife, and he had the knife out. And that knife was about this long.
He came up to me and he said, "Let me see your license." And then he spit at my feet, and it landed like 1 inch from my shoe. I mean, it felt like he was saying, "Motherfucker, make a move."
I was the only white boy there. I was the only white boy there. Got beat up and got it taken away. Got beat up and got it taken away.
Oh, you look more white than we do. I mean, look more white, but no way do I cross that line.
The fear is still there because I know it can happen. Because it has happened, not to me, but to people who look just like me.
Another woman in the laundromat another time came up to me with a $10 bill and waved it in front of me. Said, "Change, change," and she was enunciating very carefully.
We always live with you, baby. Always. Every day. And the ride up here is, oh man, where are we now? Oh, God. I hate being out of the city because I know who's out here. You are.
You block your progress.
I block my own progress.
You know, as I look around this room, I realize, you know, the connection is really me, because I actually know each one of you in a very special way. Some of you I just met, actually. Each of you were picked very particularly, and it took time to do that. Each of you were picked for your honesty and for your directness and for your sincerity and for the work that you do, too, on yourself. And that's why I really wanted to have you on film. And your ethnicity?
I am American. Generations back, we came from England and Denmark. But mostly when they got into America here, into whatever happened, we got mixed up. So I'm American. A white American, I guess.
My father is Mexican. My mother is Irish.
African and in some ways back Cherokee descent.
I'm a third-generation Japanese American man.
I'm at least seventh generation Euro-American. My family is, on both sides, is Scot, and on my father's side is also English and German.
I'm Mexican. I'm Latino, I'm Mexican. I'm Mexican-American, I'm Chicano.
I am Chinese, and I'm Chinese-American.
I am an American also. I am an all-American man. And the reason I say that is that I was born here, educated here, and that makes me American.
But I do always want to be identified as African American or black, not just an American. The reason why I'm here, and I'm glad to be here, is because I have a lot of anger, and this is a positive outlet for that anger. I could do a lot of destructive things, but that wouldn't be productive whatsoever.
I'm here because I'm a racist, and I've been working at unlearning that since '76, and I've still got it. And there's a lot of pain around that.
And I'm nervous about being here because I don't know what's going to happen. I think one of the ways I've survived racism is to be in complete control, and I'm not in complete control here. So I'm a little worried about that. And I'm just, tripping on the, walking in here and seeing who was here. I didn't expect white men to be here.
I'm a local boy, grown, raised right here in this small community. And when the subject of racism was mentioned to me, I found it extremely exciting because I grew up in this area with friends of all races. And we would read in the news, see on the television, of racial struggles in other areas and could not comprehend how that could be, why they had to cause struggle and strife for each other. Why couldn't they be just like at home, happy and productive together? And I don't think that anybody should be any less than another. I grew up in this area right alongside the Native Americans. And some of them to this day are my dearest friends, and I like their cultures, yes. And I even seek after artifacts from their history, but there's no struggle or strife if we don't cause it.
In Chinese, you know, the word American really means white to us. And that's why today I actually will not use the word American either, because I do believe that it really does not incorporate all of us. That there really still is not that political, social, and economic equality. And when that day comes, I'll be the first to stand up and say, I'm an American, and stand with everyone. But until I feel that, I think that I'll always feel like I have to say Chinese so that people know who I am.
3 years ago, I went to Japan. I said, got to go find my roots. I'm going to find out who I really am. Apply for the passport, filling out the things, and it, nationality, it says American. I said to my wife, I can't put down American. I'm not American. She says, yeah, you're American. You got to put down American. I said, I'm Japanese. You're not Japanese, you're American. And I said, I can't do that. I've never in my life claimed myself to be, and it just like, I said, well, I'm going to put Japanese down. He said, you're not from Japan. You know, you were born here, you're an American. And it just, I was just blown away by, you know, for the first time I had to put that down. Otherwise, it would have been rejected, and I had no choice in that.
Do you think that we don't get excited as Americans when you say you are something other than just American? I got excited when Manoir said to us, he is Chinese American. Why can't he be just American and excited about being just American like David is?
But wait a minute,
You know, he calls himself an American.
But I'm doing that for a very specific purpose.
Okay.
I'm doing it because I'm turning my identity as American to fight against the white supremacist notion that only white people merit the status of a title of American.
Well, I agree with that. I don't think we do.
I refuse to be segregated or to be allocated to a lower status by not being recognized as an American.
I like that attitude, and I think that's a correct and proper attitude. Whereas
I'm also Chinese.
Yes.
I'm very proud of that. And for a person to look at me and say, for a white person to look at me and say, you're just like me, we're both American, totally insults me because it denies my identity as a Chinese person, too.
I feel in the sense that I have a claim to be American in ways that you don't, because my people came from this continent. My ancestors came across the Bering Strait from Asia and came down the coast and on into central Mexico. And others of my ancestors came from Arabia, through Egypt, through North Africa, and into Spain. And then they all melted together in central Mexico. America is not the United States. America is the entire continent. But we think here, or Americans here think that America means just this country. And so I feel like I have, you know, I've been kind of, I don't want to say I have, because I don't feel it like that, but my people, the people that I come from, have been sort of robbed of that term. We're not Americans, even though we are. And I don't know where that came from. I don't know where that came from, but you know, when you say, you know, I wish you would be American, or you would all agree to be American. You know what is presented to me as an American does not look like me, does not think like me, does not smell like me, does not cry like me, does not play like me. So for me to say that, to use that as my primary identification, For me, it means to deny nearly all of me.
I worked in corporate America for a while, and now when I see guys walking down the street in a suit and tie, I'm like, phew, I bet he can't wait to go home and become a black man again. You know? Because you're not allowed to be a black man in corporate America. Walk through some halls with some pride, you're going to scare some people. Show that you have some intelligence, you scare people. You got to shuffle. It's a 1993 shuffle, but it's still a shuffle.
You give us a hard time for being white and being American and being in control. I've never felt in control. I had vineyards and pear orchards for many years, and I employed many of your people, if you wish to call them that. They're my dear friends. To me, they are friends equal to any that I would have. And I greet them. And now they come into my business and they just want to come in and say hi and talk to me.
There's something different that's happened. What's different that's happened for us, and I'm speaking as a people, borders on genocide, takeover, colonization. You know what happens to me when I pass a mission? You know? It's not the same thing that happens to every group that passes a mission. There's something different. When I hear Father Junipero Serra, what do you think I think of? You know, it's not...
Conquistador.
It's chopping off hands,
Sure.
It's slavery, I mean, you know, that's what's different. And it gets tiring to not have that difference known. It gets tiring to not have that difference acknowledged and to have to keep talking about it. That's what gets tiring.
So I see here an attitude expressed by Utaka and by Roberto that says, how can I be an American? I can't. And so I won't. I'm going to cling to my heritage. Is this clinging the problem? Is this belief that you cannot become American the problem? For years I've said, why do these guys have such a problem being a color? Why can't they just be individuals and go out and make a place for themselves? And I hear you saying that we whites don't allow that, that we keep you down. Why aren't we just humans? I mean, why aren't we just brothers?
There's a certain sort of silent consciousness about what it means to be American that I sense coming from white folks that I'd like to talk about. Before I do that, I'd like to say one more thing that's hard about talking about racism, and that is that people of color are spilling their guts and doing education to white people. Let me explain to you how you've got this wrong. Let me explain to you how you've got that wrong. Let me explain, and then we get cross-examined, and it's like, well, maybe your problem is blah, 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 blah. And it's always, racism gets looked at as a person of color's problem, and it's not. We're like on the receiving end of the problem, but we're not the problem. I walk in a world where black people, where Latinos, where Asians, where Arabs, all these different people are experienced as problem people, and that, well, we're going to deal with the person of color problem when, in fact, racism is essentially a white problem. And that for you to understand what racism is about, you're going to be so uncomfortable. You're going to be so different from who you see yourself to be now that, there's just no way for you to get it from where you're sitting. And I'm not saying that you could never get it. I mean that you need to step outside of your skin and step outside of what seems really comfortable and familiar to you and launch out into some real, for you, unknown territory. And you haven't gone out there like you haven't, gotten in proximity to black people, as you say, because you don't have to. And that's part of what it means to be American, to me, is to have all these things that you can do if you want to, that you don't have to do if you don't want to do. And there's a way in which American and white and human become synonyms. That why can't we just treat each other as human beings? To me, when I hear it from a white person, it means why can't we all just pretend to be white people? I'll pretend you're a white person, and then you can pretend to be white. Why don't you eat what I eat? Why don't you drink what I drink? Why don't you think like I think? Why don't you feel like I feel? God damn it, I'm so sick and goddamn tired of hearing about that. I'm sick of that. That's what it means to be human being to me. That's what it means to be white. That's what it means to be American. Why don't you come the hell over here? That's what I hear every goddamn day. And you know that I can't come over there. You know that this skin and that this hair and that this way that I talk and that I think and I feel will never, ever get included because I'm unpalatable to this goddamn nation. I'm unpalatable. You cannot swallow me. You cannot taste me. You cannot feel me because you don't want to. You think that you can survive without me, but you can't, man. You think that, hey, it'll all be fine when we just treat each other like human beings. And what that says to me is don't be yourself. Be like me. Keep me comfortable. Connect where I'm ready to connect. Come out to my place. Or maybe I'll come down and get some artifacts from your place. That is bullshit. When you say that your ethnicity is American, there is no American ethnicity. You had to throw away your ethnicity to become American. That's what it means. That's what it means. You give up who you are to become American. And you can pretend that it's okay because you're white. When we give up who we are to become American, we know that we're dying from it. You're dying from it too, but you don't know it necessarily. Get ethnic, you know? You know, I'm not going to trust you until you're as willing to be changed and affected by my experience and transformed by my experience as I am every day by yours. I attended a school for the first time that was predominantly white, and I had white teachers. And I walked into the classroom, and there were 3 reading groups in my 5th grade classroom, and I was promptly put into the lowest reading group. And I gathered very quickly that that was because I'm of African and American descent. Then they put me into the intermediate reading group, and then they put me into the highest reading group, and you know, I just boiled and churned through the whole process because my reading level was higher than anything they had in the classroom. I'm always dealing with you. I'm always dealing with you. You don't deal with him. You don't deal with me. Maybe you had an opportunity to deal with some Latino people. Well, we always deal with you, baby. Always. Every day. And the ride up here, it's like, oh, man, where are we now? Oh, God. I hate being out of the city because I know who's out here. You all. Or at least I know who's in charge. Even if there's other people out here, I know who's in charge. And I don't know anywhere where I can find some safety that I can rely upon when I'm out here. You know, I'm real glad I got to the house before sundown.
Yeah. This is like shark-infested waters.
Really?
Yes, definitely. It doesn't have to be said, it can be felt. It's intuitive. It's hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have to go through it. But, you know, I've traveled down south, and, you know, just that feeling, like you said, you get, you know, drive through Kentucky and Tennessee and see the Appalachian Mountains up ahead of you. And know you want to get through those mountains so fast without stopping for anything because you don't know if you'll get out.
Driving through Ukiah,
Yeah.
a big pickup was behind me
Right.
with a gun rack on the
Right.
back, you know? I was nervous. And I've never been hurt by somebody on the freeway with a gun rack, you know? That's never happened to me, but the fear is still there. The fear is still there because I know it can happen. I know it can happen because it has happened, not to me, but to people who look just like me or who don't look just like me.
I've got the fear. I don't want to stop. I don't want to be out on a road around here. I tell you, it's scary with the gun racks. I've done workshops.
You know what the gun racks are all about?
Can I
Sure,
finish?
Gordon.
Because it's my experience. I don't feel safe with those people. And that's a stereotype about me and people that have gun racks and pickup trucks. But I used to do a workshop in this area a little further east from here called the Mail Experience. And I had 7 shotgun holes through the sign that I had out on the road and picked up the shells and I still got them. I can't feel what I know Victor feels up here, but I got a piece of it because it's just scary and I don't know how to deal with it.
When my father hit Texas, he never stopped. He went straight through Texas. We didn't stop. Well, we must have stopped for food. I can't believe that, but I don't remember stopping. I know we didn't stop to sleep. I mean, it's like he wanted to get out of that state as fast as he could.
I had no comprehension, and especially from you Latinos, that you are frightened to come up Highway 101. That is, in my opinion,
No,
unfounded.
I'm not.
An unfounded fear and apprehension on your parts.
Unfounded. There's that word.
This
in
valley is
there.
not hostile to Latinos.
How can you say that? You're not Latino.
No, it's not hostile to Latinos.
Can I just, I need to.
And Victor and Lauren here are expressing feelings that I'm afraid with these feelings there will be no progress and no change in racism. The fear of color will remain. The gap isn't being bridged here.
I thought Victor explained that very clearly, that we've changed as far as we're going to
Yeah,
change.
and you're expecting a change from the white person.
Exactly.
And I'm saying to you, you're the same as I am, and you don't believe that. And I think that really may be more predominant than you think. But what about guys like Colin Powell? You know, I mean, why do you laugh about that?
I'm not laughing.
He
I
made
think
it.
it's a serious issue. He did make it, but what did he make?
There are many professors in the California college system that are colored, and they're respected and,
Colored.
well, Afro-American, Chinese, Latino, what do you want me to do? Let's lump it all together in one term. Colored. I'm colored. I'm white. You called me white, and I'm colored.
Let's go back to Colin Powell. Colin Powell was responsible for killing.
This is emotional, and this is totally normal, and to be so emotional about this topic. And I feel a lot of frustration here, David, and I think you have to listen to our experiences because they're valid.
I believe that.
Well,
They
I don't
are
think you
valid
do
for David.
because, let me tell you why I don't think you do. It sounds like you're bouncing it back to them and saying, it's your problem. Why do you guys act like this?
Okay.
You guys can drive down the street, down, Highway 101 up here.
And I can go
Tell
into
the truth.
Chinatown
Well, listen to me.
and be frightened to death.
Well, listen to me. When I drove up
And I do get frightened.
You gotta listen to me. When I drive Highway 101, I didn't feel quite comfortable either.
Really? Oh.
No, but let me tell you my experience, where I'm coming from. I went to high school in an all-white environment. I was the only person of color in my high school. I resented being Asian because I wasn't white. This kind of racism is in place so that people don't even think about it. It just happens. I just feel left out. When I stand in line in a counter to be served, to buy something, and the white person who comes after me gets served first, is not done on purpose. It's because the person doesn't see me. I'm invisible to that white person, to the clerk. You see? I'm invisible. That happens to me.
I was talking to some friends in a restaurant, got the same thing as you, Dave, but they started asking me to get their food, to order their food, They started ordering and looking up at me, It's this insidious thing that you deal with daily. Every day I go to a professional workshop. Oh, don't I know you? I met you at the last one. Every fucking time. If not once, several times. Every time, no one recognizes. We all look alike, right? And this is this continual thing, continual. Even, I took your comment out of naivete earlier when you said, well, you don't look Japanese. I'm not sure what you look like, But this happens. It's just in the air that you breathe. And all these things seem like doors to shut you out from something.
What I see from white people generally is they don't talk about themselves as white people. They talk about themselves as human beings, as if it means the same thing. Now, what I want to know is what it means to be white. Not what it means to be a human being, because we already know that you're a human being, and we can already relate to the universal human experience. What is the white experience? When I look at you manifesting your white experience, I also see you not naming it. I see you wanting to blur the distinctions between just being a person and also, most particularly, being a white person and what that means. And I think that part of what it means to be white is it means never having to say you're sorry, but it also means never having to admit that to be white means something different than to be a person of color. And that there is an experience that you have that is very different from what the experience of people of color is.
I'm sure that there were many times that I felt that people of color were being mistreated. Probably when I was in my late teens, going down to basically black areas and seeing the cops around a lot. We'd go down there and dance and see the police around. But I don't think there was a lot of awareness. It was more just a numbness. It doesn't happen to me. It doesn't happen in my area. And so, that's somebody else's problem.
I never consider myself, as you do, a part of an ethnic group. I think that's what you're looking for, and you're not going to find that among us because we don't look at ourselves as an ethnic group.
Do you know that that means something?
I don't know what it means. I mean,
I'm telling you that that means something.
I'm trying to answer your question, Victor, and as you were asking that question, I'm saying, well, gosh, I never considered myself part of a white group.
I just wonder, doesn't it seem kind of deep to you that you don't have an answer to that question? Do you have any notion that the fact that you have no answer to that could actually be a source of meaning, experience, or knowledge?
The opposite is how I feel about you, Victor, that you have no comprehension that the world is open to you. You think that the white man is a block and a dam to your progress, and he is not. I think you put up that dam and that block yourself in your regard to the white man.
See, I think that's one of the major problems with racism. I think he did answer the question.
Yeah.
As a white man, he doesn't have to think about his position in life, his place in the world. The history books tell him, as they are written, that this world is his. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to think about, where he goes, what he does. He doesn't have to think like a white person. The way the world has been set up, America in particular, white is human.
White is a human being.
Right. That's what a human being is. So he doesn't have to worry about how do I think like a white person. That does I don't know, but I would assume that doesn't enter a white person's mind because they don't have to deal with that from day one. They step into a world that is theirs.
Yeah.
So he has.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it was an excellent question.
I need to respond to your saying that, that I create my own racial predicament by my thinking, my attitudes.
You block your progress
I block my own progress.
by allowing your attitude toward the white man to limit you.
I think the police limit me. I think that white supremacy has placed limitations on where I can go and what I can do, but I don't think that I cause my own predicament under white supremacy. And by white supremacy, I don't mean neo-Nazis, and I don't mean Klan, because I'm terrified of those people on an interpersonal basis. Institutionally, not terribly much, because most of the lethal, toxic, deadly racism that African American people experience and that other people of color experience in this country does not come from them. It comes from moral, fair-minded people who believe that they are lovers of justice, churchgoers, people who experience themselves as decent and actually very nice folk. And it is there that I find my fear. Back to the question of what it means to be white. I think what it means to be white, in part, is that you have the privilege of blaming people of color for their own victimization under white supremacy. I've heard you say that to me. I've heard you say that to him. I've heard you say that to him. I've heard you say it to him. I've heard you say it to every person of color in the room who challenged your perception of yourself in the world. That is part of what it means to be white.
Maybe that's part of the answer, that we feel that the field is wide open, and each man can stand on his own.
No. Each man does not stand on his own. Some men stand on other men and other women. Light-skinned men. Men from Europe stand on the heads and the hearts of men and women and children of color. That is, and of course, you also stand on the heads of white women. But no, it's not a question of every man standing on his own ground. All of the ground, damn near, of this planet has been taken from almost all of the people of color on this planet. You know, Australia was a black continent. Africa was a black continent. And if the people themselves were not taken from Africa, then everything of value was taken from Africa, to the extent that that was possible. North America was a red continent. South America was a red continent. You are not standing on your own ground. You are standing on red ground. And that's what it means to be white. To say that you're standing on your own ground and standing on somebody else's. And then mystify the whole process so it seems like you're not doing that.
White. Why is being white such a unique thing? Why is it such an important thing? I've never felt that way.
It is kind of unique thing, you know.
Well, it must be. You're telling me that being white is special, and I'm not
it's a
feeling
minority-
special.
it's a minor
And I've
portion
never
of the
felt
world.
special because I was white. You've pointed out to me where, yeah, I have racial prejudices, and I've expressed them innocently and naively by just little questions and statements that I've made. Yeah, maybe I really am that way.
I have a real difficult time talking with you about your experience. I can relate to their frustration. It just doesn't feel like anything's getting through.
Working up my courage to ask you something, a request. And also there's a question with it. The request is for you to not give up on David, to go after him. I'm not able to get through, and many in the room are not able to get through. And we've given statistics, and we've given personal stories, and we've given histories, and we've we've yelled, we screamed, we've cried. You know, it's not getting through. I'm sure you've met other white people that you just have said, bye, forget it, I don't need to deal with you, you know, that kind of thing. I don't have the privilege of not dealing with the Davids in the world. So I'm asking you to do that. I'm actually boldly expecting you to do that. If I were standing in front of a whole room full of white people, I would tell them much of what I've told some of the men in this group this weekend, the white men in this group. I would tell them that it's their responsibility to go educate their white brothers and sisters. I would tell them that it's my expectation. I expect them to eliminate racism. I expect them to go out and intervene whenever they see racism going on. And I expect them to be as outraged about racism as I am outraged about racism, as black people are outraged, as Asians are outraged, as Indians are outraged. I expect that of them, and that's what I would tell them. I would tell them what I expect. I'll tell them what I'd tell them what I never want to hear from them again. I never want to hear stuff about my experience is not valid, or why can't I just pull myself up by my bootstraps. Those are things that I would tell them about. And I'd tell them that they've got to end it. They've got to end it.
3 weeks I had to form my...
This morning, I felt this ray of hope and optimism, and you shared that you get nervous when you would go down to San Francisco into a ethnically diverse neighborhood, and that you actually got in touch with those messages, whether they were given to you directly, taught you directly or not, or somehow that you felt how these things just started to come over you.
Why was that important to you, Tommy?
Because I just sort of felt that you finally connected with some feelings, and getting down here instead of being up here in the frontal lobes and analyzing everything and looking at everything rational. Because a lot of the fears or the anger isn't rational.
It's probably the looks that you get. I think that's where it comes from, the looks of the individuals. They stand on the corners and, what are you doing here, you know? And they make me feel unwanted. I think that's what I feel.
Yeah. That's what pickup trucks do. And guys with cowboys just sitting there, you pull up in the gas station.
Yeah. I know my feelings are very opposed to some of yours, and I don't understand why you have all this intense anger and emotions, why it's so difficult for you to just be yourselves and make your place. I think that's the big difference here. We white men don't have this camaraderie, if you want, that you coloreds have. We have, well, we don't go out and organize. We don't go out and have discussions. We just do our stuff, whatever our stuff is, I guess.
I see that we're living in two completely different consciousnesses. And, you know, and I think that I get yours, and that I have to be able to understand yours in order to survive. You live in a world where it's not necessary in most instances for you to understand my consciousness and my experience. It's like one of those parking garages with the spikes coming up. You know, you live in the world where when you drive your car past, the spikes lay down. And I live in the world, and the men of color here live in a world where when we come up to the spikes, man, they're facing right at us.
The thought comes to me, Victor, you're going the wrong direction. If the spikes are opposing you, does that ever occur to you that you're going the wrong direction?
That's a beautiful statement to me, that I'm going the wrong direction. It's a marvelous illustration of the consciousness of white supremacy.
Well, let's not say white supremacy.
That's what I want to say.
This is where, as you speak this analogy, and I'm thinking to myself, golly, why does it always have to be in opposition to the way things are structured? And I constantly sit here and think, why is he taking this direction? Why don't they as a group, why don't you with your people look for something within yourselves that can make you feel equal to us? Because what I hear is you are not equal. And I do not feel that.
So what's keeping you from believing that that's happening to Victor? Just believing, not to know why that's happening to him, but what's keeping you from believing that that's
Because
happening
it
to
seems
Victor?
like such a harsh life. And I just don't want to believe. I would assume, Victor, that your life is really that hard, difficult, and unpleasant.
What would it mean, David, then, if the life really was that harsh? What would that mean in your life? If it really was
Well,
that
that'd
harsh?
be a travesty of life. You have here something that shouldn't exist.
And so what if it does? What if the world were not as you thought, that it actually is happening to lots of human beings on this earth? What if it actually were, and you didn't know about it? What would that mean to you?
Oh, that's very saddening. You don't want to believe that man can be so cruel to himself or his own kind. I do not want to accept that it has to be that way, or maybe it is. And it must be because you express it and the others in the group express that it is.
from here I can work with you.
I do not find you to be an enemy. Aggressive and frightening when you become very animated and agitated, but
We spend a lot of time being nice and conciliatory and thoughtful and careful. I don't want to be excitable with you about it. I become excitable when I feel like there's no way for my humanity to get affirmed. If I can't say no with my whole aliveness to being mistreated or invalidated, then I'm dead. I'm as good as dead.
if there were some way that I could be of use and service to you, I would. I don't know how. I've never looked at that possibility.
I think how you could help me is to begin to understand yourself better. I don't need help from you or from white folks as much as I need a sense of fairness, which is lacking, and as much as I need a sense of awareness about this invisible protection that you have and this invisible privilege that you have.
When Victor was telling you about you being asleep, not being conscious of your privilege and taking it for granted, it was revealed to me that that is true when you refer to us as you coloreds, because I find that is a very demeaning term. I find it alienating, and I've heard it in the context of referring to people of color in a negative fashion, and it's painful for me to hear it.
How would you like me to address you?
Well, not as you anything, not you people, not you coloreds, not you Asians, not you blacks, not you Latinos.
You,
Just
David.
people of color, or David, if you want to mention, talk about like non-whites, or I'm more comfortable with that, because when you say you, it's sort of, it's alienating. You bastards, you pigs, you lowlifes, you no good people, you people of color. That's how it feels.
And, I know I have talked to black people who have said, you have immigrants that come to this country and they can't speak a word of the language except for one thing. They can all say nigger. Racism between whites and people of color isn't the only racism that exists. There's racism amongst people of color.
It was dusk, it was just dark. This whole group of black people there going home, and I had this anxiety, this tension there. And I said, why am I so, what's this big deal? And then I started to relax, and I said, these people are just going home from work. Just like me. They're all waiting at the bus stop. And as soon as I opened my eyes and scanned instead of, and released myself from all this fear, but it still comes up. I get frightened. You guys are powerful. You guys got a lot of power.
Certain Asian people have reacted toward me, and that really hurt me because I felt they took their cues from white people. Like I've walked by Asian women, and you can see them tense up. And that really bothered me, that here was somebody who was another minority, and yet they had all these, they treated me in a way that they wouldn't want to be treated. It's like they were treating me like some kind of thug off the street, and I really hated that.
The table behind us were two young black women, and they were laughing and then looking over at my table where I was sitting, and I heard one say, "All Chinese look alike." I got up and I walked over to them, and they just wouldn't look at me. They kept on kind of giggling and not looking at me. I said, I heard what you said, and I disagree with that. Do you think all blacks look alike?
And I came back to my car, and there was a motorcycle parked in front of it. And I looked around, and there was a black man in a motorcycle helmet getting money out of the money machine. And I was pissed. And I walked up to him, and I said, your bike's blocking my way. I mean, he just turned around and kind of looked at me, had his helmet on. He opened his visor, and he said, "I'm busy. I'll get to it in a minute." Sort of telling me, I've got the power. You don't. I felt like it was misplaced rage.
Yeah.
I felt like it was focused on me, but it was misplaced rage, you know. And I'm afraid of that. I run into it every once in a while, and I'm afraid. And I think that I read the media, watch television, read the newspapers, and all I get is this reinforcement. All I get is this reinforcement about these negative stereotypes. And it takes a real effort to sort of combat this.
I am reluctant and fearful of further division between us, and worried that division between us will happen even more, where we won't come back together. That's something that runs deep with me. That stops me from looking at areas that get hard when it comes to other people of color.
I have been a little bit nervous about getting into this and not wanting to have us, just lay our junk out on the table without, acknowledging that that there's a context of white racism that we live within that helps to separate us and confuse us about each other.
And I do agree that you have to look at interethnic racism within the context of white supremacy. But I disagree with the fact that you can't cover that up, because it is there and we have to deal with it before we can do anything about white racism. We have to deal with that conflict because it's there, and in my opinion, it's growing. By exploring interethnic racism, we've torn apart the unity that we built up earlier when we were just attacking white people.
Okay, I have to
And
take
I wonder
exception
if
with the bit about attacking white people. I think attacking white racism.
Okay.
It's not. I don't think it's about attacking white people.
There is some anger, underlying real anger, and we're afraid to express it because we want to, as Victor said, maintain some kind of unity here that we've established. Maybe we should take the risk and lay it all out.
I mean, talking about it helps. Bringing it out into the light helps. It loses some of its mystery, some of its power.
Growing up, I picked up stereotypes that blacks were lazy, that they were violent, that they were dangerous. I mean, there is a tape in the back of my head that plays back all the time. But there's another tape that I've developed and also that says, this isn't true.
When I see Asian people being praised for intelligence and black people invalidated for being stupid, I feel bitter about it. You know, because I know I'm very smart. I've always been very smart. And, and it hurts me to see that acknowledgement given up to other people when it's taken away from me. And all the people in my community, with very few exceptions, where I grew up, worked very, very hard. My mother worked hard. My grandmother worked hard. My aunts and uncles worked hard. They worked themselves to death. And they pulled on their bootstraps, and those suckers just tore off, and they didn't get no place.
You leave home every day, your parents instill at you that you're a good person, you're a moral person. Yet when you go out into the world, just because of the color of your skin, people avoid you. They look at you as if you're a potential killer. They don't think you're as smart as they are. You watch the news. Who do you see being taken away in handcuffs all the time? It's somebody that looks like you, somebody that could be you. You're always under suspicion, so at times you do wonder if it is you.
In my father's restaurant, it was, make sure we don't have blacks come into our restaurant, because it'll mean that white people won't come into our restaurant. And white people don't want blacks in the restaurant. But all that time, the whites were really encouraging that without knowing it. And that's why when I hear about the black and the Asian community, I feel so sad about that, because I think that there's a way to which we've been really used to put down black people. you know, especially in the LA riots, you know, the poor little Korean grocer. If only the blacks could work as hard as us with such great family values, you know, look what they get. Then the black people beat them up, burn down their stores. You know, and fact of it was, we were both being exploited. We've been both taught to be really scared of each other. And I just, I mean, it hits me here, you know, because, I mean, many of you know because my mother was murdered by an African-American man. And I can be just as angry and buy into my father's stereotypes about African-American men. But I knew where he was headed with that. I knew where he was headed. That all African-American men murder and kill. And he wanted me to pass that on to my child. But I know the stories he told me about the racism that's happened to us. And somehow I just want to say, remember what happened to us. Just remember what happened to us happens to everybody else. And I know he wanted somebody to stop that. He wanted another Asian man to stand up for him. He wanted another black man to stand up for him. And maybe another white man to stand up for him.
I have had a fair number of experiences of being or feeling invisible from black to Latino, where essentially I've been given the message that my issues as a brown person are not as important or as bad as a black person's because of the lighter, I'm whiter, you know. So somehow the measuring of the color line, you're either black or you're white. And if you're in the middle there, then it doesn't count. Like I watch out to see, all right, now which one are you gonna be? The one that values my experience or the one that says the only thing we need to do is pay attention to what happens to black people? You know, so when I meet you, that's the kind of thing that goes through. Okay, now which one are you gonna be? Which one are you gonna, you know, that's the tape that goes on.
You mentioned the skin color, and I think if you go back to when we were slaved or enslaved in this country, the lighter-skinned slaves were the house slaves, and they usually had more privilege. Now you bring that into the 20th century, and a lot of black people may equate lighter skin with more privilege, and that's why they don't see that you would have a problem that we would have.
You were talking about skin color within the black community. Within the Latino community, there is skin color also.
What about Asian?
Asians too.
Mhm.
Definitely
And the
Asians.
darker you are, the kind of lower you are on the scale. And like mothers, when they have a baby and the baby's white, oh, que blanco, or whatever, how beautiful, you know. Mira, casi es rubio, you know,
he's blonde.
and he's almost blonde, you know.
You know, I know that many black folks resent any signs of assimilation, whether it be amongst other people in the black community or in other ethnic communities. You know, and some of it's the skin color stuff, whether you're in the black community or in, other people of color communities. If you're lighter, there's less trust often and more like, well, you might use that light skin that you have to get more goodies out of white folks. Mm-hmm. My experience has been that white folks tend to feel more at ease with people that are closer to the color that they are. You know, and that I get to do stuff that my mom can't do. My mom's significantly darker than I am. I have had an easier time putting white folks at ease, you know, because I'm not Lauren's complexion. And that can create static between me and Lauren because...
But I get the impression sometimes from the African American community that Asians are perceived as privileged, that educationally we've achieved, economically we've achieved. We're almost like white people, damn it. And therefore we're hated just, I mean...
What you can do, and maybe I'm putting too much pressure on you, but I think what you can do is make people understand how you achieved what you achieved. You know, show them how you worked hard for it, that you weren't given anything.
Again, I want to dispel the myth that all Asians have made it economically, because, you know, that's not the truth. But the ones that do are very visible.
I was just thinking the model minority,
The model
you know,
minority, right?
and it's what a setup. You know, it's like, oh, why can't you people be more like those people?
Right.
And then you wouldn't have
That's-
the
that's
problems that
acceptable.
you have.
I think we are comparing each other based on white people. We're not white enough, and therefore we chastise or criticize each other for not being like the white model. I think that's why I call it internalized racism, because I don't think that I, in a vacuum, am racist against blacks, but because I come from a white context, that blacks are not like whites, and therefore I should be against blacks. Or Asians are not like whites, therefore I criticize Asians for not being like whites.
I was wanting to think that I was white. I was wanting to blend in. I was just wanting to assimilate to this extreme degree until I realized who I really wanted to be. And I looked back, and my family's internment in the concentration camps had a huge impact on that. They didn't want to identify with being Japanese, because when they said they were Japanese, they were discriminated against severely and locked up. They didn't want to identify as being Buddhist anymore. So my grandfather became Christian to blend in. He lost his real religion. And just now I'm starting to reclaim that. My dad taught me a lot of lessons. Family jokes about him being the Archie Bunker of the family. You know, and Chinese are like loud and noisy businessmen that try to take your money or something like that.
Several of my family members do not like the Japanese. I think a lot of the older ones especially still remember the Sino-Japanese War, in which Japan invaded China and pretty much brutalized a lot of people.
Atrocities.
Yeah, and a lot of them remember that, and that continues. I think they perceive the Japanese as arrogant, distrustful, extremely violent, and repressed.
A lot of so much of that's true too. That's the hard thing to deny.
But it's not true for a lot of
Right, for
Japanese
us
people.
sitting right here.
right.
The number of times where I have not intervened on your behalf, or on your behalf, even on your behalf, for my own people, you know, where racism has flown and I've let it fly, about black people, about Asians, about other Latinos even, about Indians. And I think I have a lot of shame about that. And so if I expose that, what are you going to think of me now? You know, that kind of stuff is part of what makes this heavy for me. A woman was talking about, oh, those Cubans are taking over Florida. You know, just running with it. And I sat there, and I didn't say anything. And finally she said, Hugh, I want to ask you something. I hope you know I wasn't wanting to offend you. And all of the things that I wanted to say, I sat on. You know, I sat on it. That's an example to me of being shameful and embarrassed of not coming to intervene on your behalf, or on my behalf, for that matter.
I understand you. Earlier in my life, I was totally surrounded by white people. And that was my life. Aside from my family, there was all white people around me. And every once in a while, I'd hear a comment like that, or something like that, about Cubans or Mexicans or whatever. Oh, but Roberto, you're not like that. I mean, I wasn't even Roberto then, I was Bob or something. Oh, Bob, you know, but you're not like that.
When you share that you don't take up for black people sometimes, I feel some disappointment, but it's very small. It's very small, and I can appreciate that it's difficult, because you know, I don't always take up for me or other people of color also, and in fact sometimes I'm the perpetrator. it feels very strange to me to have white men bearing witness to this conversation. And that feels real vulnerable to me. First of all, to share the sort of tender parts of the hurts of racism or internalized racism, the way we play it out amongst ourselves as people of color. I feel like I want a higher level of trust between me and you or me and you before I do that. And I'm really fearful that you'll listen and nod your heads and say, uh-huh, they're just as racist as we are. I want to hear your best reassurance that you will not misuse this information.
You think maybe I would take this information and use it to incite racism? Not so. It's unfounded fear, Victor.
With all due respect, I want to affirm that my fear is not unfounded. It's based on personal and collective history.
Experience with others.
And while it may or may not bear out in my relationship or our relationships with you, its foundation is sound as the raising and setting of the sun. And it feels really invalidating to hear you continually evaluating my experience or the experience of other men of color in terms of whether it's founded or not. The foundation might not be visible to you.
The only
but that doesn't mean there
relationship that you and I have is what we have in these encounters. We didn't know each other before then. And I do not like you grouping me with all those with whom you have had experience. That's disturbing because perhaps I'm a little different being from up here. Removed from the cities where you live. I feel for you people.
That answered my question.
I do, and I don't know how to really portray that, except to say that I feel the hurt that you're experiencing. And I understand the distrust you have of white men. And it's interesting to me to see that distrust also exists between people of all colors.
It's not the same, though. Because what we do to each other pushes us down and lifts you up. And what you do to us, or what white folks do to us, pushes us down and pushes you up. It's not the same. And my fear is that if we talked about it, that you would say it's the same.
I'm going to
Yeah.
do something that we
Yeah.
haven't done today
Okay.
at all. Roberto, would you trade places with Gordon?
Yes. That was fast. I was ready for that.
What a person of color, Latino, does with a black man, or any of that, doesn't seem any bit the same to me. And I don't even term it racism.
What is the difference?
A lot. They have little or no power. I'm not big on politics and understanding that whole thing, but it's to me it's a system that we consciously and unconsciously use to keep people of color down.
I understand the problem that people of color have with the white race. And when we're talking here about a man of one color offending or giving difficulties to a man of another color, I look at that as I am a color, they are a color, each one is a color. It's the same man to man. Why is it different when it's one color to another than white to a color?
Because you're
Because I
on
got
top.
the power.
Well, we're on top.
I got the privilege.
Yeah, I hear you tell me all the time for many hours now that white is on top, and I believe you. And I believe that you have that feeling. I have never had that concept that white is on top, that I am on top.
Look at the CEOs of the companies that run this world.
I agree with that.
They're all white men.
I know that.
So do you think they're going to think about me or Hugh?
For me,
No, wait a minute. Me or Hugh or David when they make a decision?
no, they're cutthroat. They think nothing of
people, really.
But their decisions will most hurt people who look like us, not people who look like you. When we fight each other, when we don't take up for each other, that hurts us a lot more than it hurts you. And I never realized that until I sat here and just sat back and listened to what Victor was saying and then your response to it. But now it scares the shit out of me to even continue this conversation in this vein, because, you know, I'm going to multiply you by, let's be nice and say the 20 million, the 50 million who will see this film and think, why should we change? These rats can't get along with each other.
Talk about it.
I'm getting seriously depressed sitting here. Yeah, I was thinking we were making progress, and I just don't feel like we're making much progress anymore.
How's that feel?
Feels like shit. Yeah, I'm ready to go outside and run my head through a wall.
What do you need from us? From me or from the other men here?
Just to know that we're all still unified, that we're all still working toward the same thing. But, Roberto, you were going to say something.
I was just going to ask David, you seem to be unaware of the statistics and the news stories that come through the general media would tell you that a black man and a white man laid off from a corporation, that the white man's going to be rehired before the black man.
I'm aware of reports like that, yes.
You are. What happens when you hear them? Do you dismiss them, or do you think they're incorrect, or?
If I were in a position to hire, I'd hire the best man available.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do, and it wouldn't matter to me what color he is. Among the whites, of my peers at any rate, my colleagues, my acquaintances, we are becoming more and more alarmed at the tendency or the trends to seek out and hire ethnic groups over the white, and that is disturbing to us in some ways.
It should be.
And it is. I have 5 daughters, and they apply to different schools. The minority races are many times given added points that give them a boost above the total points of the white race. So, you know, it's not just that it's all against you. There is much against us also.
I am disturbed that anybody is not getting into college, including white women, including white men. I'm disturbed that white men are out of jobs. However, what I get back most is pointing the finger at the people of color and the women for taking the jobs, and not at the corporate heads that are sending the factories to Mexico, to Indonesia, et cetera, to make more money.
And I want to just kind of just play a devil's advocate here, and that is, what if I had said to you, well, that's just a few folks, and that's not been my experience. I think your kids should just try a little harder. I think your girls should just, you know, get those 3 or 4 more points. I mean, just kind of isolate. Everybody gets a chance in America to get an education. How would you feel if I say that to you, given some of the disturbance you were feeling?
That would be minimizing my feelings.
Does it make it feel like it's real anymore?
You hear me, but you don't want to put much importance on it, yeah.
Yeah. And then what you might end up doing is trying to defend that it actually does exist, huh?
We might do that, you bet.
You bet, yeah. Just like the men in this room have been doing with you today.
Sure.
One story after another, trying to tell you it's real. You might even call in some of your friends to prove that it happened, maybe even show some documents. That's what I'm talking about. That's been happening.
I have allowed myself to feel in my soul, in my heart, what other men are experiencing, and that has caused me to take down the walls and barriers that my mind has placed before me regarding men of color. And I have found that they are good men and that I can love them. This will probably be difficult for me, but so you understand, I was raised by a father who was very much opinionated and racist, I would say. Oh, my father would always tell jokes about the colored people that would put them down, or would demonstrate to me that they were a inferior group of people. The way he would refer to them, calling them niggers, implanted in me that they were an undesirable people. And he demanded much of his children, to the point where if we didn't obey, we were physically abused by his boot or by a big mean strap. I learned to anticipate what he wanted so that I could do it without ever incurring his abuse. And in doing so, I learned to protect myself from outside harm or any emotions that would cause me anguish or disturb me. And I carried all of this into a pattern of working to avoid dealing with reality, I guess I would say. And all my life, that's where I've been. I work hard, I work long hours, and I keep myself content in my work, and I'm away from the pain and the strife of the real world. And I know when you tell me your experiences, I tend to minimize them so that I don't have to deal with them. But it's not that I don't want to, and it's not that I don't feel your anguish and pain as people of color. And I'm deeply hurt that you would consider my race as the oppressor, because certainly I have never thought myself that way. And that disturbs me to know that you consider me and my color that way. Please accept whatever I can do or say to you to allay to you the feeling that some of us white men really are not aware that we are such a problem to you. And when we say to you, well, just can't you be like us, we don't really understand the differences between you and us.
I'm really sorry that what has happened to you as a child being abused happened to you. That should never, you didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve any of that. And I appreciate you sharing with me how you survived that and how that survival is with you today, and how hearing us and hearing my story, how your survival, how that affects how you hear me and what you hear and what you do with it. That's really important for me to know how you've survived. And as a white man, to know how you dealt with things, to know how you deal with things when they come your way. That's what Victor was asking, I think, in asking, what does it mean to be white? What is it like to be white? And I appreciate you for exploring that and for getting in touch with what it means to be white. And I appreciate your survival. I'm glad you made it.
I just want to say that I appreciate very much your candor and your openness to hear us and try to understand yourself a little more deeply. I just also hope that you will keep in mind that there is no quick fix. You don't change and become a non-racist overnight. You, I think, have just barely tapped into what racism is all about. Just kind of touched the surface of it. I think there's a lot ahead of you. You're developing a new consciousness. You're just starting to see how we as people of color feel. You're getting to just find out a little bit of our reality. And it's going to be a long process to really, really fully understand it.
Stretch out your arms and take hold of the cloth that covers you with both hands. The cure for the pain is in the pain. Good and bad are mixed. If you do not have both, you don't belong with us.
I really worked to keep my expectations out coming up here. And one I couldn't keep out was fear. Because I represent the oppressor. I am the oppressor. But I really see my responsibility and the Euro-American responsibility to get together with our brothers and talk. Come clean on what we've done and what we participated in, what our ancestors have participated in. Put a stop to it. And one of the things that I really appreciate from all of you is tolerance. Because we haven't given you much. And it really felt good that I wasn't treated by you the way we have treated you. And I thank you.
As I look around the room, I have a lot of beautiful memories of each one of you. Yeah. Particularly what sticks out at this moment for me is Utak and I being belly to belly last night and talking. We sort of had a little world just within the two of us.
I saw the genetic link that we had between each other that was just so amazing. And as I was looking into him, you were talking about seeing me, but I was seeing you. I was seeing a version of myself.
And I could see myself inside him. There was a younger me standing in front of me.
I know when I got here Friday, I found myself when people would arrive, I was sizing them up. You know, I was already trying to decide who was my friend, who was my enemy. I found out that you can really express your opinions with people who are different than you without it leading to any kind of violence.
Over this weekend, it was really important for me to see people express their anger against racism because it's something that is very hard for me to do. I was raised, acculturated to not express that kind of anger when I'm mistreated and to take it silently. And I have always wanted to express it because when I keep it inside, I feel that it's killing me, as it has, I believe, killed my father.
Hearing something and being the nice Japanese man and just sort of bowing my head or not wanting to create any waves or not wanting to disturb people or not wanting to offend people. And you know, as I get older, I'm no longer willing to do that anymore. It's just not acceptable.
You know, a lot of these guys I may never see again, but they got a special place inside here, everybody. And if they ever need an ally, they got one. If somebody makes a remark about a Latino, Roberto's face will be there, Hugh's face will be there, and I won't be able to put up with it.
If I were facing a white audience and they were asking me what I wanted from them, I would say justice. Because I cannot love you until you give me justice first.
I think I will see change in individuals. I saw that here with the white men, that there was change for them. I don't think I'm going to see much change on a societal level or an institutional level in my lifetime, and that makes me very sad to think that. What I can hold on to are the individuals that I know are changing. And I know David will go away and he will educate his daughters. I know he'll do that, and the people around him. And that's what I have to hold on to.
So I really am appreciative that I was here. It will have an impact on me throughout the remainder of my life. And I will be your ally and do all I can to stop racism wherever I encounter it.
And he'll fight and he'll struggle and he'll intervene on my behalf. And I think that it'll wear off, that his ability to struggle against racism will wear off unless he has other white men with him, unless he has other white people with him saying, keep going. If David or people like David are going to depend on people of color to keep him going against racism, it won't change. Racism won't change.
I think we have a beautiful world that is in great danger. I know we have a beautiful world, and I know that it's in great danger. And I can't think of anything I'd rather do with my life than to see this great project of human life and of life in general on this planet persist and go on. And I'd like to leave a healthy and beautiful world for my son and any generations that come after him.
Well, if I could talk to my fathers, I'd say, be brave, be proud, and do what you believe is right, and study. Always study. Never stop studying.
I think one of the first thoughts for me was that I think I really wanted something for my father to see, because he thought that white people wouldn't listen or come and see a film and then get really angry if they saw a film on racism. Besides that, I think he also has indoctrinated me for years that people of color and whites can't get along. There's no way that's going to happen on this earth. It's going to keep going on and on and on. David, I like it perfectly when you said, you know, that about you liked the anger. I mean, it was needed and it was honest and it was appropriate. Those are the words you used. But that we do need to get that anger out. Because underneath all that anger is all that hurt that has never been allowed to come out for us. And then on the other end is, I think, that what we all saw, what David and Gordon also saw, was that at the end of it was a possibility to get along, if it could just be heard and acknowledged. I remember it on Saturday evening, I just broke down and I cried on Hugh's shoulder. Because I told him that I think that I could rest now after this film. That I could say I left something for my son. And I know he's going to go out into the world to see what I had to see. I wanted to know him, to know that I was with him in some way. But I wanted the world to be different for him. I wanted to know him to know that he wasn't crazy. And then I shared with you, David, that I wanted my child to meet your children someday on an equal basis. And I want that. I will remember every one of you for the rest of my life. I mean, some of you I've known, but never quite in this way. And for the rest of your lives, you too have this film for your children and your partners. And Victor, you did your people proud. Each of you did that. Your fathers, your grandfathers, grandmothers. You did it for them. And for that, from the deepest part of my heart, I want to thank each of you.
May the work that I've done speak for me. May the work that I've done speak for me. And if I fall short of my goal, someone else come take a hold. I've told. May the truth that I've told speak for me. May the work that I've done speak for me. And if I fall short of my goal, someone else come take a hold. May the work that I've done speak for me. The truth I've told. May the truth that I've told speak for me. May the truth that I've told speak for me. And if I fall short of my goal, someone else come take a hold. May the truth that I've told speak for me. And the love that I've shared. May the love that I've shared speak for me.
You think someone is going to destroy you. If you don't have the upper hand, you are afraid of the differences of people. You must destroy them. Can't you see? It's fear that's driving you insane, eating you alive and causing you much pain. You've got to walk right through your fear. You've got to walk right through your fear. You've got to walk right through your fear. Got to walk right through your fear. You think it's right to control the land that other people own. We can live equally in harmony if we respect each other's lives. You are afraid of dying, you don't know how to live. You are so needy and afraid, you've got to learn to give. You've got to walk right through your fear. You gotta walk right through your fear. You've got to walk right through your fear. You gotta walk right through your fear. You run around causing everybody pain. Now everyone is going insane. Stop the madness, save your soul. Stop the arrogance, give up control. You've got to walk right through your fear. 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 You've got to walk right through your fear.